Hi, my name is Margaret Ingalls. Today's date is March 18th, 2021, and here is the back of my piece of paper that just has these structures for reference. So, was a little intimidated by this lab at first, but I actually really enjoyed taking apart the eye. Interestingly enough, it's an organ that I feel like is kind of one that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but this was really interesting. I'm just going to move my dissection here a little closer to the camera. So here is my cow eyeball. So first on this outer part, we have the cornea, which is this protrusion part of the eye, and then it's surrounded by the sclera, and in humans it's that white portion of the eye. Sorry, the posterior part of my eye just fell off. So it's that white portion, outer portion in human eyes. So I found this like super interesting when I cut open the cornea here, that aqueous humor, that fluid came out, and I wasn't really expecting that, but so that was interesting to know that like the eye is filled with fluid on that inside part. So now I'm just going to hold this anterior portion of the eye. So if we open up the cornea here, we can see the pupil and the iris outlining this part of the lens, which if you turn it around, you can see a lot better. So this ball-like structure is the lens, and then we have on the inside, you can see the iris, and it's actually, when you look at it from the back in good light, you can kind of make out how human eyes have that, you know, kind of striation to the iris. You can see that through the back of the iris here. And then you have the choroid, which is this thicker outer wall that the iris sits in, and that those structures are both part of the vascular part of the eye. So that's where a lot of those blood vessels attach through. And then I cut my eye into a middle portion and then the final posterior portion. So if we look to the posterior portion of the eye, we have the retina, which I was just not expecting this beautiful color. I just thought this was really, really cool. I guess the light, you can't really see it, but it has this beautiful like blue-green color, and I thought that was really cool. And then in the posterior part of the eye, just like how the anterior part of the eye had the aqueous humor, the vitreous humor is in the posterior part of the eye. So there is fluid in the eye. And like I mentioned before, I have this anterior cavity of the eye, this middle part, and then this is the posterior cavity of the eye. And then coming off the posterior cavity of the eye is this gigantic optic nerve. And I thought it was so interesting how thick it was. I don't know what I was expecting. I guess in the human brains, the little optic nerves I felt have been a little bit thinner. So this was really interesting to like see how thick this piece of nervous tissue really is. So just to recap again, we have the cornea, the sclera, the iris and the pupil, which are on this inside part of the eye. If we pull the cornea back, so we have the iris and the pupil right there. And then we have the lens back here in that anterior cavity. We have the sclera on the outside, the choroid, which is with the iris. The posterior cavity of the eye has the retina, and the fluid in the anterior cavity is the aqueous humor. The fluid in the posterior cavity is the vitreous humor, and then we have the thick optic nerve on the back. I really enjoyed this dissection, so that is my dissection on my cow eye. Thank you.